I feel like I'm repeating myself too much here. Hiya stuff, the Godzilla stuff, sells out like gangbusters for US distribution. You may be a little bit late, but it's better safe than sorry. Pick them up at Big Bad Toy Store at the link in the description.
Wonky, Kaiju, Dragon Ball, and more. It's Steven's Toy Reviews.
Hey collectors, it's going to be Steven here, and welcome to another Exquisite Basic review. I think I finally have that memorized without needing to look it up. Today we're going to be taking a look at a figure that every Kaiju action figure collector, I would say every Kaiju collector has been waiting for. A 6-inch scale female MUTO. The mommy is finally home. Cake every day. Yes. We've been waiting for this. We have had multiple companies toss their hat into the ring for Kaiju action figures, and quite frankly, you know, it's been exceptionally disappointing that we have had the biggest companies who have handled the Godzilla license as far back as maybe even before you or I were even born. They have had insane close workings with Toho. I would even assume Legendary, even on other products and franchises. And we only finally, a decade later, with a brand new company to the license, right? They put out a MUTO figure right after their Skullcrawler, which likewise is really the first. Yes, barring the Playmates, but that's not what we're talking about here, and I think you know that. So when it comes to the intro shot, you know, what Hiya does, quite frankly, I think that is very true, and we can all agree. First 6-inch scale MUTO action figure, the female. Let's take a look to see why you should add her to your collection. I guess that's the review, but let's stick around and have a chat because she's just that awesome. Now, when we take a closer look at the figure, yes, absolutely, mine is not without flaws, but that is going to be the production of action figures. Unfortunately, if you get one that is unscathed in any way, shape, or form, congratulations, go buy a lottery ticket. I would say that's what I would do. No financial advice there, of course, because you won the lottery. I mean, it doesn't matter whether or not you're going to be paying $300 for a Soul of Chogokin figure like I did for Kiyu. Yes, that is how it's pronounced. I do understand. We're going to go with Kiryu anyway. But nevertheless, if you're going to be paying $300 for like a Soul of Chogokin, that's fine, but you're going to probably find something wrong. And even here, I do have a couple of issues scattered throughout. And that's mostly just going to be because I do believe that the Hiya figure here was actually cast in a like white-ish, tan-ish plastic, and the whole figure is painted. So when you do have paint chips like that, it's going to be a bit more notable than when you cast in a different color, which if that's what Hiya is going to be doing, then that's going to be a bit of a flaw. Maybe it has to do with pricing, the way you're able to get the details out. I don't know. But if that's really going to be it and I have to look for it, then quite frankly, I'm fine with that. The rest of the paint application, the nice brown wash that they did for her, that's sort of like a red, I guess you may say rust, is amazing, and it really brings out the details that are going to be found on her arms, her legs. We do have even more of a gray dry brushing there on top of that wash, which again does really help to make everything pop. You can see the bumps, the ridges everywhere, and everything doesn't look out of place. Like it doesn't happen to seem like we're going to have a break in the sculpt on this one particular spot, because when we look into the articulation, it just seems like everything is accounted for. Not only considering that, we do have the mouth and the eyes, which are not going to have that same paint application throughout the body. That is clean as well. Of course, when we throw her up on the shelf, those smaller details like the paint scratches that were fresh out the box, yeah, I suppose that is objectively going to be an issue, but those are going to be small, which one, you're not really going to see them in any particular area, like under her pits, like the armpits. Except for when they're on the shelf, you're only gonna see them there and under macro photography. So if that's gonna bug you, well, maybe this hobby isn't for you. All right, so of course, she looks amazing. She looks fantastic. What about the articulation? It's actually, I find it to be a little awkward. You kind of saw that in the unboxing, which I do hope you check out. just because the unboxings are, my initial opinion. Anyway, but once you sort of get the feel of her, you actually kind of wish that maybe there were more points of articulation with this gal, because, we can pretty much get everything that we need, but just that little bit extra. So the jaw opens and closes on a hinge, not a big deal there. It's pretty cool. Some have reported that the tongue actually does have some movement, and we do have the Monster Arts Jaguar thingamajig here, so again, the tongue is supposed to move according to a reliable source that I have, but it just kind of goes back to the original position for me. So I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it's not. That's a fine position. Now, I will say, looking in here, if you push her head up, because this is going to be on a hinge, I'll talk about the back in a second, it kind of looks like underneath there's just going to be a peg that goes into the head. I don't know if that's a ball joint. I don't know if that's a swivel. You're not getting twisting and turning movement, pretty much, right? You do that, it goes back to default. You do that, it goes back to default. So you're not going to get the head to look from side to side. It's just up and down movement. Now, that hinge there is set up actually so it can go a bit higher and it can go down a bit lower. But what Hiya did here is, there's a little gap, but that only happens when you overextend this and you push it out. This is going to be a softer material, which is actually really nice, all things considered. And when you go to push the head up, that goes down. When you push the head down, that goes up. So it's really nice considering Hiya put that into the figure. It's really good that they accommodated for that. So I guess when we don't have the head movement that we maybe should, I think it's a fine compromise, especially for those who don't like gaps. So for the front arms here, the front legs, whatever you would prefer, I initially thought that these were straightforward ball joints. All of the arms here, we'll call these arms, right? They are on swivels and hinges. So you can see that we can spin them forward and back just like so, right? So it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And get that out of the way there. So they spin all the way around, and then she can T-pose about that much, okay? And then we can bring the legs in like that. Now, where we get really, really neat here is that does seem like a bit limited range. Then at the, I don't know what you would call that, the not elbow, we do get single hinges, right? And we get swivels as well. So if you're worried about range of movement, you can push the arm back like that, and then you can use this hinge to sort of help with getting better poses, which I did for some of the photography, okay? Then we do have this one down here, which whatever part of the anatomy that might be. Keep in mind the sculpt, because that will change the range of motion for the joint. But it is the same, a single hinge with a swivel there. And then when we get down to, I guess, what we could call the ankle or the hand, whatever, right? We do have hinge and then swivel, so we get rocker movement. This is very small, so do be careful when you're moving this around, right? You don't want to break it, and if at any point any of the joints feel tight and you don't feel comfortable moving them, heat this figure up. Okay? Heat it. The plastic is soft enough where it will respond to heat and it'll be easier to move. Now the hindquarters here. I don't particularly like these, but I kind of understand where they were going with the articulation. So where they plug into the body is going to be a hinge and a swivel, just like the front ones, right? But because of the sculpt, they're a bit more limited. Yeah, you can hear that squeaking, but you can get the full 360 spin. Then we have this connection point here, which it is on the same sort of swivel hinge idea, but for like a more natural position where you have the sculpt here pointing outward, it's on a hinge side to side. You get how that's kind of weird? I think it's weird. But then we do have a swivel. So you can adjust it, but then if you adjust it kind of like that, so this way it is forward and back, the cap there looks a bit weird. But nevertheless, down here at this point, which is a better defined like knee or elbow, We do get a hinge. The range of motion could be a bit better, but nevertheless. And then we get the same sort of rocker movement down here. Now, these little grabby hands, they connect into the body on a ball joint. So we get free rotation and all of that good stuff. And then here is a ball joint as well. Kind of loose, but they still hold pose, so you don't really need to worry about anything. We do have a joint in the main body, a ball joint. So this really does help with getting her to look in specific directions. Like you can kind of get her to look that way. You can get her to look that way. So it's all good in that regard, right? So that kind of makes up for everything to an extent. Hind legs, right? So this is interesting to me. Maybe this is the one. Okay, they're both doing it now. So it is going to be a barbell style joint where we do have a ball joint that plugs into the main body. At least that's what it looks like to me. But mainly you're going to be moving the ball joint that plugs into the thigh, right? So you can twist it, you can turn it, and you can spin it around. The thing is that the temperature really hasn't changed in my studio that much. Admittedly, we're in a bit of a heat wave here, but the tightness has really changed depending on when I pick this up. So again, if you have tight joints, heat it up. You'll be good. This joint here is a hinge. It is a single hinge. So that's as far forward, and then going as far back, it sort of looks like I should have more clearance. But even after heating up, that's about as far as I can get. So I don't know if there's something going on, but it is going to be the same for both. But we do have swivels, so that helps. For this one, likewise, okay, swivel. And then for the feet, we do have hinges that allow you to move them forward and back, and then they spin, but we don't really get any ankle rocker movement per se unless we push the foot forward, and even then, it isn't that great of rocker movement. That being said, considering how Hiya does their articulation, here's what I will say. First and foremost, it is a bit awkward to really get her down. You gotta fiddle with her because she's gangly. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is she a spider? No. A mammal. Don't ask me why, but she's a mammal. Anyway, she's got 8 limbs, and it's very difficult to kind of get her planted on all of the ground points evenly. But once you get a good feel for her, she really does move swimmingly with no issues, and you get a good feel for her, and they did a great job with how they engineer their figures, okay? Accessories, she comes with none, which is a bit disappointing considering there is a bit from the source material that they could have done. One example could have been a swappable sack down here. Yeah, she would come with a swappable sack for eggs or something that would glow. That would be pretty neat to have. There could be a nuke that she could have in her mouth, like they had in 2014. Or there could be, something else that they could have, because we know that Godzilla 2014 is going to be coming soon, and he doesn't come with anything either. So maybe there could have been a severed head that they could have included with this release for him. But I will go back to the skull crawler here. This is going to be the first of her kind, right? We do not have another female MUTO action figure. Period. End of discussion. There may be some other stuff like Kyoto bottle caps or Gashapon. That's not what we're talking about here. True blue action figures. Plenty points of articulation, nothing. We have the Juggernaut from Japan, Bandai, Tamashii Nations, so on and so forth from them. Nothing. Not even a Movie Monster Series vinyl. There is the Kaiju Bengaichi, which I did cover, but that is going to be an awkward scale vinyl. This is it, and considering that they were able to make this, I'm okay with maybe holding out for accessories. But I do believe that there may have been an unintended feature included for this figure. And here you go. Here's just going to be a quick look at how that UV interaction for the Mama MUTO looks. So it's kind of okay, you know. It's not really, I think, meant to be a gimmick. I don't think it's meant to be, in effect, something that Hiya intended here. Let me see if I can get a better view here. So it is there. Maybe we'll get a couple pictures here. But the thing to keep in mind with this is I don't think, like I said, this was something that Hiya inherently intended to do, right? I think it may just be, come on, work with me. Thank you. I think this is just something that was like a byproduct, maybe of the paint, maybe of the production process in some way, because this isn't something that they well advertised. It was just something that folks found out. And, you know, just an example of that, right? Just to pull something out here, let's just throw the Figuarts Ash Ketchum in there and look at how he sort of responds. We'll get a focus in there. You can see. So you can see, like, there are parts of him that light up, right? Kind of. You can see that the way that it hits. You can see that his eyes sort of glow. There are going to be parts on his shoes, sort of, you can see there. You can see that there's actually like little threads there on his shirt for some reason that don't glow evenly. So it's just kind of things like that. And then also, just real quick, I don't believe that this was an actual feature that they had for this, but like the Mondo Hedora, the one that I have, like you can see that there are parts of it that glow as well under the UV light. So you can particularly see around the waistband. And then just real quick, one more example here. I've got the final swing suit, the red and blue suit, SHF Spider-Man. You can see that he starts to turn a bit neon under the UV light. So, and whether or not it is intended doesn't matter because it's cool, but just something to keep in mind. Maybe Hiya will try doing this in the future for some kind of repaint. So back to the scheduled review. So with that being said, I really do think that bang for the buck. Again, to reiterate, I'm mostly okay with no accessories. I say mostly just because, man, there is quite a bit that they maybe could have included. But assuming there's going to be some kind of repaint down the line, I'll pick that up too. The way that I see it, you're funding this unique mold, totally worth it. Size comparison time so you can see how big she is. And to my understanding, they're working to make some of the figures smaller, which is a bit odd considering that they are moving towards that standard scale for their own. So I am super happy and thrilled that they opted to make her smaller for like your 6-inch scaled kaiju figures for our standards that we've had for so long. But at the same time, for building your Hiya collection, maybe she is in factual scale with them, but you know, that weird juxtaposition where 2014 Godzilla isn't that much smaller than 2019 and onward. Just my own 2 cents. Buy now. The only thing that I can say is unless there's going to be a repaint or of some kind down the line, or Tamashii Nations finally opens their eyes to see that there is going to be demand for the MUTOs and the other original Monsterverse creations, Skullcrawler, Tiamat, all of them. This is only going to be seen as another win in Hiya's book for what they are able to put out there for kaiju fans. Paint application is fantastic despite a few scrape marks here and there on mine. The sculpt is wonderful. The articulation for what Hiya is able to do and what you get a good feel for is great, with just a couple of problematic areas for quality control, at least on my unit. And the UV effect, I mean, it's a gimmick. I personally believe unintentional. Maybe it's not. Some folks are loving it. There's no reason not to pick this up unless for some reason you just simply don't like Hiya product, which at that point, hey, you know what? You do you, boo.